What You Gotta Do is on now.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of What You Gotta Do to Live a Simple, Abundant Life with your hosts, KT and Cody. Good morning, KT.
Good morning, Cody. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. Me too. Well, welcome. I am very excited. It's been a while since we've recorded, so I'm really excited to kind of jump back into this and move forward. I want to start off real quick with some feedback from our first episode that we posted. And the feedback we got is, who is Matt? Apparently I referred to
Matt?
Who's Matt? Well, Matt is the inspiration for our podcast of What You Gotta Do. He's the one who inspired us to move forward with this because he has the best life hacks there is ever to be invented. Isn't that correct, KT?
Yeah, he's the king of life hacks. That's why we're doing this, just for him. He's really taught us a lot. And he always has like little hints and helpful ways to do things that makes life easier. And we thought, why not share this simple, abundant living with everybody?
And when he prefaces it, he always says,
what you gotta do
is. So that's why we coined the phrase. Well, we didn't coin it, but whatever. TM.
Well, I kind of did, only because every time he starts to tell me how to do something, I always go, well, what you gotta do is, and he gets so mad. So I thought, why not make a podcast about it?
And just haunt him for life.
Yeah.
Let's haunt him. All right. So today's topic is about motivation and empowerment. And it all came from a quote that you were inspired by from a movie. KT, I'm going to let you introduce the topic today, if that's all right.
I would love to, Cody. I just love The Wizard of Oz. The quote that Glinda, the Good Witch, and I love Glinda, is, you've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself.
Oh, will you help me? Can you help me?
You don't need to be helped any longer. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas.
I have?
Then why didn't you tell her before?
Because she wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn it for herself.
What have you learned, Dorothy?
Well, I think that it wasn't enough to just want to see Uncle Henry and Auntie Em. And it's that if I ever go looking for my heart's desire again, I wouldn't look any further than my own backyard, because if it isn't there, I never really lost it to begin with. Is that right?
That's all it is.
But that's so easy. I should have thought of it for you.
I should have felt it in my heart.
No, she had to find it out for herself.
Always had the power, my dear. You had to learn it for yourself. Why did that intrigue you so much? Or what inspired you about that? Like, it resonated with you in some way. What hit at you about that?
I grew up and I had absolutely no confidence whatsoever. And I never felt empowered. It was really hard for me. Growing up in a situation, and everybody had a bad childhood, I know that. But I feel like as a kid, you kind of put layers and layers of armor onto you. And I was really closed off. And I was very dependent on others for power. I had no independence. I was the most dependent person. And it took me a lot of peeling off each armor to actually find my own power. And that quote made me really realize, what am I waiting for other people for? I'll do it myself. Making mistakes, learning the hard way.
You can't see me. I am nodding like profusely as you're saying all these things. Like, I feel exactly what you're going through. Yes.
Cody, honestly, I feel, and I don't, it's not like I feel sorry for myself. I don't. I am who I am because I feel like I fell off that tree of life and hit every bump of hard knock on the way down. And I feel like...
You're like the pinball hitting everything.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
And finally, when I hit the ground, it was either, am I going to go up or am I going to stay down? And this quote and this feeling of I can empower myself is what helped me to just say, I am who I am. And this is who I am. I'm proud of my past. I'm proud of everything I've done, even all the crappy, stupid things I've done. It's made me who I am. And everything I've been through, I wouldn't change me for anything. I'm giving myself back the power. And this is why that quote means so much to me.
I so appreciate just how vulnerable you were just now, because it's really hard to kind of peel back those layers and reveal who you are. But I had that self-discovery, I think, earlier this year of like, when was I the most, and you probably heard this quote, I don't know, how old were you? I mean, think about it. Like, I remember like being 11, 12 and thinking I was going to rule the world. Like, where did that motivation go? Right? Like, where did that motivation go? So what happens in life that, anyway, we could go do a whole nother podcast on that, but I love that you have taken that and kind of built yourself back up to, even though you were knocked down the tree of life and all those lessons, like you started climbing branch by branch right back up to the top of the treetop. And like, that's what I want to know. Like, how do you do that? How do you start climbing?
Well, I guess that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. I appreciate, I totally agree with you. And I feel like a lot of people feel that same way, that we had this hope as at some point in time in our life, and then it was like stripped away for whatever reason because of trauma and life and all of that stuff. But we don't want to focus on the negative. We always want to stay on the positive and realize that you have the power within yourself to pull yourself out. So one thing that I do, when we talked about how we empower ourselves, I really got into, remember that Navy SEAL book? It was like super small, like 3x5. And the guy was like, what I did, it was like, make your bed every day and blah, blah, blah. It was all these things. It was like a to-do list of success. And so I love books like that motivate me. And if you read about like Navy SEAL trainings, what they go through, your son who's a Navy diver, and the stories that you tell me about his training and what he goes through. And I look at my life and I'm like, am I getting like sprayed with a fire hose in a pool, having to tread water for like an hour? No, I'm not.
Hours.
Yeah. Like, I am not, that is not my life. Like, poor me, cry me a river. Let's move on. Like, when you put that into perspective and you look at like what other people have come through, for me, I think it is like, you don't have it so hard. Quit your crying. Like, why you cry? You always say, why you cry? Why you cry? So how I empower myself is I really got into reading motivating stories. Like, if you look at even celebrities' lives, which I don't really love, like the whole Hollywood scene, but if you look at like Kevin Hart and how he exploded overnight and how he came over some like major traumas, and now he's like this superstar comedian who's advocating financial literacy. Like, I commend him for that. You look at like David Goggins and his story and how he literally recreated another person because his life was so tragic. He did not want to keep reliving that life. He literally created another person, like in his mind, and became someone else. And TED Talks, like 5-minute TED Talks, anything like that I can read and feed off other people's energies, I love.
I follow David Goggins on Instagram.
Don't you
He's
love
very
his
inspiring.
bouncing pecs when he runs and does his videos? It's like, I have to stop.
Yeah. Does he have a face? Because I don't even know if he has a face.
He can inspire me in a lot of ways. We should probably edit that out. All right. So, KT, tell me, I watch autobiographies, I read books, I do things like that. Something that you do? Like, what's your routine or ritual?
Okay, if you need something to believe in, you got to start with yourself. And here's the thing. I feel like you do that, and I do that as well. Like, everybody I follow on Facebook and Instagram, I do for inspiration, because that really helps me.
Right.
Different people have different religions. You know, for me, some of the inspirational stuff I learned from the religion I follow, or whatever people are into, I think, you got to have something beyond yourself. I think that really helps. I think what really helped me and what I have to continually think about is I don't strive to be a celebrity or someone that's doing something great. I think that what I'm empowering myself to do is just to be me. I want to be a kind person. I want to be a good wife, a good friend, a good daughter. When I focus on those things that I really want to be, that's what I really want to be. Yeah, I do want to have money in the bank. I do want to be able to retire, and I strive for those as well. But I know what I want to be. And that's, when Dorothy says later in that quote, she talks about her heart's desires. You need to know what your heart's desires for, and if you're not getting them, maybe they truly aren't your heart's desires. And I think that is my heart's desire, so that's what I focus on, and that's what empowers me. Maybe figuring out what you want to do before what you got to do.
I think that's so true. That earlier this year I had that exploration. So when I started kind of reading those autobiographies of, like you said, high achievers, there's something more to it. There's something other than driving, because I'm not motivated by fame. I'm not motivated by money. I'm not motivated. What motivates me is time spent with people I love. So that's my motivator. But why do I want to do that? And you have to really establish and understand and do some self-exploration as to what you really, really want. And for me, I don't think I've honestly ever been asked that, or nobody's really cared, or I didn't have time. I don't know. There's a million little things that you could say right there. But really, when I put it on paper, what makes you happy and what drives your life, and you actually write it down, there's just something, it changed me. It changed my purpose. It changed, like you, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than you. Going back to that, what is your heart desire?
I think that if we all just sat down and focused on just what is our heart's desire. For some people, it might just be having children to love, or writing a book. That's me.
You keep saying that. I don't know why it keeps coming up in every podcast. It's like you should or something. I don't know.
But I think when you figure out what your heart's desire is, and then you can empower yourself to go after that. I think my husband is a really good example of that. He knows exactly what he wants, and he gets it, and he's perfectly happy. Regardless if some people think it's not enough, too much, whatever, he doesn't care. He does what is his desire.
That goes back to simple, abundant life. That's what he wants. He has simplified and he's living his best life. I love that. It's what it means to you, what it means to Matt, what it means to whomever. It's individually selected. It's not like we all have the same thing, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of interesting. So that I'm going to skip ahead a few points to something we were going to talk about then, is I think to do what you're saying is to kind of really assess what brings you happiness. You have to kind of tighten your circle of trust. Right. And what does that mean? For me, it was, who do I want in my bubble to support me, and who really truly understands what I'm trying to accomplish? That's who I want to surround myself with. I kind of want to build a little barrier of negativity. It's like a force field, if you will, of negativity. You don't want those people, because you're trying to strive for certain things in your life, but you don't want people on board who are going to be the anchor pulling you backwards.
Isn't that so true? Just part of growing up, I think, is learning who you can trust and who you can't, and people's motivations. What's motivating them to hang out with me? What are they either inspiring me with or, draining me of?
Right. Are they making you a better person? Are they building? Are you meeting your goals? Are they preventing from meeting your goals? You kind of have to ask yourself, are they matching what you're trying to accomplish in life? And if not, then it's okay to say goodbye.
It is. And
it's okay.
Also, I think of how many people I've come across in my life that were awesome and so inspiring, and maybe I don't have a connection with them anymore, but I still think of them fondly. Do you have those people that you think about and you think, oh, I'm so lucky I had them in my life, what they inspired me to do?
Like the brief encounters of it's amazing when you have those memories, I think. Is there somebody in particular? I'm trying to think right now, I'm going through my Rolodex of memories of who that would be, and I do have a few.
I have a friend named Beth, and we don't really stay in contact too often. She was always so strong and so powerful, and sometimes got on my nerves, but just her strength, you could really get something from that. And she's still strong to this day. And we kind of follow each other on Facebook, and we don't have that relationship anymore. But what we had still means a lot to me, and I hope she thinks fondly of me. But there are those people in your life. And I know everybody says oh, well, I had this teacher or whatever. Yeah, I had those too. I'm just saying, just random people. I appreciate them. I'm thankful.
I love people that I have brief encounters that are inspiring. I had one fairly recently at an event I was at with my company, and he's working for this company that I do business with anyway. And he said, what are you doing to inspire more women to get into your field? And it kind of like, it shocked me a little bit. More to come on that later. But, you know, it was that moment of like, he didn't mean anything by it. There was nothing negative or anything, but it was almost like a challenge to me. Like, what am I doing to inspire other people to do what I'm doing? It's kind of interesting.
What are you doing?
Well,
you know what, Cody, you
that's
really
for another
inspire
podcast.
me. You inspire me, and I think we inspire each other to do better, and I think that's great. And that's another thing.
Honestly,
that I kind of want to say. You know, we're not psychiatrists. We're not counselors. We don't have any accreditations for anything like that. But we did, like I said, go to the School of Hard Knocks, and these are just our personal experiences and thoughts that we're sharing. And I think if someone does need a counselor or whatever, great, get one. I've been to counseling. You know, you have.
Seek it out.
But we're just sharing our experiences.
I remember, like, I hesitate saying this on a podcast, but I really struggle with motherhood in all terms. And when I became your friend and saw you be this amazing mother to your twin boys and your daughter, like, you dropped everything and did everything for them, and you just loved them for who they are individually. Like, I just was so, and my friend Karen is the same way. I really admire strong moms. And not strong women. That's like a whole nother story. I mean strong moms who like advocate for their kids, and not mama bears that like protect them and enable their children, but just strong moms that want the best for their kids but hold them accountable for certain things. And like, that is you to a T. And I admire that very, very, very much. And it has really changed my life and how I've parented and who I've become as a woman. I just really admire that about you.
Thanks for saying that. That's really kind of you. I appreciate that.
That's a whole other podcast.
And you know, that's all I ever wanted to be since I was a kid, was a mom.
As part of our friendship, you know, how we bonded. I'm going to kind of transition and segue something. So something that I do to kind of help motivate myself. I remember when I was going through a hard time, contemplating whether or not to go through a divorce and make that decision and what that entails and how does that look. That's uncomfortable to have after a long-term marriage, to pull the trigger on that. That in itself is an uncomfortable thing. But I wanted to make sure that I was mentally strong and physically strong to overcome that particular challenge. So for me, it became, if I'm going to do something mentally hard and emotionally hard as go through a divorce, I needed to challenge myself physically equally for that. And I hate to run. I hated, I should say, to run. I was not a runner by any means. I just despised it. And so I was like, if I'm going to do something uncomfortable, I'm going to do something physically uncomfortable, and that was to run. So I started running, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. And really started getting like in shape and really started caring about what I eat. And then kind of I knew that was like what I needed to do for myself mentally and physically to get through the hard times that were coming up through going through a divorce. So for me, I think you have to challenge yourself to do something mentally and physically strong together. I did that, like David Goggins talks about that quite a bit. He did that 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. You end up running like 24 miles or something like that, or 40, I don't know. I can't remember how much it was, but I was in no shape to do that, but I attempted it. And it was kind of amazing. And then I did these 21-day challenges where you just challenge yourself to push yourself to those limits. And I think for me, I don't know why I need that, but it just kind of is like an equilibrium, like yin and yang, right? You're trying to balance out your life. I don't know.
That's so inspiring. It always inspires me when you do stuff like that, because you really stick to it. I remember when I think
it's kind of my proof.
Do you remember when you did your 4 hours every 4 miles, and I called you in a panic from Florida that my dogs didn't have water or something crazy in the middle of the night? I had a panic attack. And you ran over to my house
and I was
at 4
like,
o'clock in the morning.
I can do this. I got you back. I got your back, Katie.
And my poor son, you were banging on his window. Oh, I'm a bad mom. I'm sorry.
You're not a bad mom. You were literally having a panic attack, and I don't blame you. Like I got your back, girl. I'm your girl.
Thank you for that.
So you had a good point that you talked about earlier was knowing and finding your inner strength is you have to control your emotions. How do you do that? Because I'm so intrigued because I was really not good at that until I met you.
I have a good friend, I'm not going to say names or anything, but I have a good friend that through this COVID thing was laid off and lost her job. And she felt like it was politics in that company and all that. I don't know what it was. I don't work there. They created a position and called her and asked her if she'd like to come back. So I said, will you be making the same amount of money, blah, blah, blah. And her thing was, well, I'm really mad because they let me go and they didn't like me or so-and-so did that, And it kind of freaked me out a little bit because I thought, because of your emotions, your anger, your resentment, your whatever you have against these people, which technically you don't even know if that's true. COVID hit everybody hard and companies hard, and there may not, I don't know, I wasn't there, but there may not have been we want you gone. It may have just been they had to let people go. I don't know. Either way, are you going to let that resentment, that anger, those feelings affect your future of this possible really good job? You got to put aside those feelings. And I think those feelings are what get in the way of our empowerment. If we're getting jealous of somebody, that doesn't empower you. That takes away your power.
How do you compartmentalize that? Because it really is, it's a difficult thing to do. And I know, like personally, how I've had to deal with it. But I think it's just reminding each other. I remember that's why you say, why you cry. Like if I start to become a victim and start to complain, you're like, why you cry?
Why you cry?
Why you cry? And it kind of pisses me off. I'll be honest. I kind of want to cry about it sometimes and just be a little whiner. What purpose does that serve? It doesn't. Check it, move it aside, move on, find the real reason, the root cause, and do what you need to do.
Go after your heart's desire. Is your heart's desire to be mad at these stupid women that may or may not have caused you to lose your job? Or is your heart's desire to get that really good job and support your family?
Yeah. I think it kind of goes back what do you choose to spend your energy on? The anger or the job itself where you can make some money? All right, so that brings us back to this week's call to action.
Or what you got to do.
All right, what you got to do. What you got to do this week to empower yourself. KT, do you want to go first with your call to action?
I'm going to focus on where I feel like my power was stripped when I was young. I wanted to talk a little about raising kids. And whether you have small kids, older kids, or you're an aunt or a grandma, an uncle, whatever, there's always young kids in your life. I was raised in a different era where you don't speak until you're spoken to. We don't need your opinion. I'm not saying that in a bad way. That was the era. It wasn't just my parents. So I really wanted to focus on when you're around little kids, only a dog should be a good dog, or you good dog, you good dog. We don't need to be telling our kids be good. I think we need to tell them be strong, be kind, be smart. We need to kind of stop that be good. We don't want to hold down their power. We want to empower them. And there's other words besides be good. Tell your dog to be good. Don't tell your kids to be good. I remember my sister used to always tell Victoria, behave. You need to behave. And she was so cute. She'd say, I'm being have. What does that even mean? Behave.
I'm being have. That's so
I'll never
cute.
forget that. And still to this day, I'll be like, Victoria, are you being have? And she's like, I'm very have.
That's adorable.
But that's the point. Instead of saying be good, behave, say, please use your good manners. Please,
I say make good choices.
Make good choices. You always tell your kids that. I know for my kids.
I tell you that.
I made a little sign and I put it above our front door. So every time they would leave the house, it says, return with honor. To kind of remember, when you go out in that world, do the right thing and come home and be proud of what you did. Right. But I think that to all the children in your life that you're exposed to, remember that. Don't tell them to be good. And that's what you got to do.
Yeah, do good things. My call to action is I'm going to do something uncomfortable. I've had an experience this week where I need to have that challenge. So I am going to do something uncomfortable. What that means, I don't know. If that means I'm going to start doing joining this gym or something that's going to hold me accountable, I have to do something hard. So I don't know what that'll be like. I'll report back next week. But I wanted to follow up on last week's call to action, or our last episode's call to action, where I was trying to be more careful with my words. And I've had really good experiences with that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've like really just slowed down in replying to emails. I had a very good conversation with a family member because I was just able to slow down and choose my words carefully where it wasn't offensive. And I've actually seen it play a difference in my life. Let's kick off warm, fuzzy, cold, prickly. I had this week's cold, prickly. Interestingly enough, I was listening to a podcast that you had recommended with Michael Schellenberger, who rode San Francisco, and he was on Joe Rogan. So I was listening to that on a plane ride over Thanksgiving break and listened to that podcast. And he talked about a quote from Winston Churchill.
Can you get closer to your microphone, please?
Yeah. He said something about courage. He was talking about the homeless situation and what we need to do. And it's really going to take some courage. Anytime a change needs to be taken place, he talks about courage. And it like that word courage just kind of zapped me in the heart, because I feel like there are times in my life where I have to advocate, and it's hard to advocate for somebody when you don't feel like maybe you're strong enough or brave enough, but you have to find that courage deep inside of you, that self-motivating thing that we're talking about. And I've had to make some difficult decisions this week. And anyway, I found this quote from Winston Churchill. So that is my cold prickly, is I feel like I was not courageous enough and doing enough for the things I feel strongly about. And so I found this quote from Winston Churchill. It said, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen."
Oh, I love that, Cody.
It's a delicate balance. It's a delicate balance. My friend Becky told me a quote from Dr. Phil this week about, it was the funniest quote. He said something about shutting up, like it's okay to shut up, like you don't have to say all the words that come into your head. And so the courage to sit down and be quiet sometimes too. That's my cold prickly, is I have had to be courageous and learn courage.
Thank you so much. I always think that cold prickly is going to be like a downer, but I feel like you always turn it into, when you add your what you got to do, like having more courage and being quiet, listening, whatever you just said. It's actually inspirational. So thank you. My warm fuzzy today is, I went to my first concert in quite a while this past weekend. Oh my gosh, it was so great. It was so great to listen to live music and dance and just watch somebody's talent. We went to go see Chris Jansen, which my husband didn't even know who he was, and he ended up loving him. I really would encourage people, what you got to do is find someone you're interested in, or a band or a group or whatever, and go to a live concert and enjoy it. And I know COVID's kind of kept everybody in for a while, but go listen to some live music and just enjoy it. That is my warm fuzzy.
Something about being in a live venue with other people around. There's an energy. My kids and I were talking about that. They had a fall sports pep assembly yesterday in their high school, and they said, "I don't genuinely like assemblies, but pep assemblies are always fun." And it's just that energy of, one purpose. You're all there for the same reason, right? So to recap today, and what you got to do to empower yourself to live a simple, abundant life.
First, learning your heart's desire.
Believe in yourself. We want you to live your best life, and thank you for joining us this week on this week's What You Gotta Do with KT and Cody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and remember to take action and claim freedom.
Thank you for listening to What You Gotta Do. The music for this podcast is written, produced, and performed by Joe Steitler. Production manager and host for What You Gotta Do podcast is Cody Hardy. Creative director is Matt Johnson. I'm KT Johnson, your co-host and editor. This has been a hell of a production.